Dedicating today's video to my dog T-Bone, 15 years old, who passed away yesterday. He's with us for an amazing 10 years. He was an amazing alpha dog, and he really lived life to its fullest. This picture was from about a month ago when we spent a number of days at the beach, and he got a chance to come with us. So we're definitely going to be missing T-Bone. My last video really received a lot of good feedback and discussion on the SEC, government regulation, and reasons why the SEC may be delaying providing clarity in the space. Today, though, I really want to focus in on the $1 billion in XRP that Ripple releases every single month, and there seems to be a little bit of confusion in regards to the XRP that's actually being released by Ripple. So hi, this is Jeff with the HODL Report. Join me on today's video as we discuss the XRP escrow that has been set up by Ripple. If you enjoyed today's video, remember to give a thumbs up, leave some comments below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and share it with your friends. Let's get some other people watching and commenting. Now, first, let's review the XRP escrow. We'll do this in brief. Then we'll go into a little bit more detail into the Ripple escrow, kind of the why and the how they set up the escrow for 55 billion XRP. The escrow feature is essentially a mechanism that was built into the XRP ledger to allow for setting specific conditions that will trigger the release of payment transactions. That could be a release to either the receiver or a return back to the sender in case it triggers a cancellation. Now, there's two types of escrow. One is time sensitive. You basically set a specific time period. When that time period is reached, then the transaction is released. The second is conditional, meaning a specific set of conditions must be met before the XRP transaction is triggered and released. The XRP can be locked, meaning that neither party can gain access to the XRP during the open condition time frame. Once, though, that specific date is reached, as long as all of the conditions have been met, then the XRP is released to the receiver. If during this period of time there's an expiration time limit and the conditions are not met, then the escrow cancels. When the escrow cancels, then the XRP is then sent back to the sender. So it's very clear, very organized, and actually a very nice way to handle large transactions safely and securely for both parties. Now, Ripple is and has been committed to maintaining the integrity of the XRP digital asset. Now, previously, this goes back to over a year ago, there had been some concerns that were raised by XRP investors that Ripple, as a majority holder of XRP, could potentially manipulate the XRP market price by dumping large quantities, large amounts of XRP onto the market, thereby, pushing the price point down. Now, Ripple immediately addressed those concerns by putting 55 billion XRP into escrow. Ripple has a significant incentive to see the price of XRP increase, and David Schwartz himself has indicated that XRP should be at higher price points. XRP is an important part of XRapid, as we all know, as the native digital asset of the Ripple, of the XRP ledger. But the XRapid solution is a component of RippleNet And it's a very important component because XRapid, as we've covered in other videos, is the liquidity and settlement solution for banks in order to complete cross-border payments. Now, in order to accommodate for sufficient daily liquidity that will be made available to the banks, it's really in Ripple's interest for the RippleNet solution, once XRapid is utilized in large numbers by these banks, it's in Ripple's interest to have the XRP digital asset reach higher price points. Now, when Ripple put the 55 billion XRP into the XRP ledger escrow, there were actually a number of specific conditions that were laid out. Number one is that 1 billion XRP would be released at the first of every month. And number two, the unused amount of XRP would then be placed back into escrow, the unused amount by the end of the month. So at the end of that month, all of that unused amount would be put back into escrow, and that's very, very important. So there's 55 of the 55 billion XRP that they started with. They divided that into 55 separate contracts of 1 billion XRP each. Again, 1 billion being released on the first of every month, covering 55 months in total. 1 billion is then released of the 55 billion. And by the end of the month, that unused amount, as I just mentioned, if there is an unused amount, it's then placed back into escrow on the 55th month. So there will always be basically 55 contracts going. As long as there's an unused amount at the end of the month, that unused amount is then placed at the end. And again, there would be then 55 contracts, because at the first of the month, that 1 billion is then used, and it's then placed on the back end of the contracts. Once they go through all the contracts, I'm sure there'll be another adjustment. And this is an important statement here, and very important to note that there is an oversight mechanism in place for the Ripple escrow that really prevents Ripple from indiscriminately changing the escrow. The escrow can actually only be changed through consensus. So once they go through the 55 cycles, and they'll get there within a number of years, there'll be less in each one of the escrows moving forward, or they'll be consolidating them somehow. But I'm sure that will all be handled then through consensus to then address exactly what to do at that point in time. Really, when we look at it, they're not utilizing the full billion XRP, and in many cases they may be putting 4 or 5 or 600 million back into escrow at the end of the month. And Ripple has really been very transparent from the beginning about the entire process, utilizing the 55 billion XRP that is in escrow and what they're using it for, to really help and bolster the space for XRP. Now, I pulled out 2 quotes from a blog post by David Schwartz. I think it really summarizes the Ripple escrow very nicely. And so the first quote from his blog post: to provide additional predictability to the XRP supply, Ripple has locked 55 billion XRP, or 55% of the total possible supply, into a series of escrows. As we just explained, it went into 55 specific contracts. These escrows are on the ledger itself, and the ledger mechanics enforced by consensus that we just mentioned control the release of the XRP. Now, the second quote that I pulled out of his blog post: while the escrow is currently being used to provide more predictability to the XRP supply, Ripple expects that escrow will increasingly be used for higher value on-ledger and cross-ledger atomic payments using the interledger protocol. So again, higher value. I think that's very important that we really note. The purpose of the escrow is for high-value movement of funds through the cross-border payments, through the through their entire Ripple net solution. And then he finalizes here in this statement, the XRP ledger also provides payment channels for lower value off ledger payments for micropayments, for really addressing both sides. Now, I really believe that this should clear up some of the confusion. Again, I think it was very straightforward, very transparent in terms of what Ripple was doing with the escrow. We explained a little bit on how the XRP escrow works. I'll put some links to the different articles that if you want to get into and read a little bit more in depth. From the developer site, also from the Ripple site, and you can go through and read this yourself. So again, this is Jeff with the HODL Report. If you enjoyed today's video, please give a thumbs up, leave some comments below, and remember to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Invite some of your friends to do the same. I guess from reading all the news, and you guys probably have seen it as well, Ledger has a big announcement coming out tomorrow. Don't know what it is. I believe we'll see very, very soon whether it has something to do with the Nano S or they're releasing a new product. But as always, if you're really concerned about the security of your digital asset investments, it's important that you take full control of that investment and having it available and readily at your fingertips on the Ledger Nano S can be an important way to do that. There's a link below if you want to use that link. You can go and visit the Ledger website and read all about it on their site. Now, a quick note before we sign off. I'm not a financial advisor, not providing any form of financial advice, but if I am going to provide any advice, then let it be this. Do your own research, invest only what you can afford, invest only what you can afford to lose, and don't buy or sell based on FUD or FOMO that's spread online. And one final note, my next video is going to cover and get into the SEC securities and a bit into more in depth into government regulation, and I'm really hoping that I'll have this conversation with the legislative lead for Congressman Soto and gain some more information regarding the HR 7356. So with that, I look forward to seeing you on my next video, and keep on hodling your crypto.